Hi, welcome to the Israel First television program with myself, Martin Blackham, and with my wife, Nathalie Blackham. Today's a very special program. We're doing it in memory of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yehuda, who was the grandson of the Eliezer ben Yehuda, and we're going to hear a lot more about him in the program, and Natalie's going to tell you a lot of information, Nathalie, about Eliezer ben Yehuda, who was a friend of ours, and you may have seen his programs, and you can see the programs with Eliezer ben Yehuda in the Israel First television program listings. You can go there and look, and there's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yehuda, and sadly he passed away on Shabbat, on Friday, so this is a special program to remember him and his work, and of course his grandfather, who pioneered the Hebrew language and also pioneered the fact that Israel should be a state with a language, with the land, the people and the language. So a very important person for us personally and for the program, and you're going to learn a lot about him. So let's get straight into the news. We've talked about AI before, and I'm going to just quickly talk a bit about one of the new developments in the news in Israel about AI, or artificial intelligence. Jerusalem Post claims that an AI-powered chatbot has been designed to help users push back against anti-Semitism and misinformation about Israel. Sounds good, you know, that it's against anti-Semitism, against wrong information about Israel, but the thing itself is not good. And by the way, AI and all these kind of things are part of the last days scenario, the one world government. The tool called SWOBot, that's S-W-U-B-O-T, was developed by the non-profit organization Stand With Us. I'm not sure if we've had them on the on Israel First, but Stand With Us, and is intended to serve students, educators and community advocates around the world. The AI assistant allegedly offers quick answers to questions on Jewish history, Zionism, anti-Semitism and Middle East affairs, and it's accessible 24 hours a day through the Stand With Us website, and you can go to their website and see the SWOBot. Well, you know, AI is being extensively used in Israel, and this is just one of the things that's been recently developed, but it's
in many levels.
It isn't a good development. Let's just put it like that. And it is a great thing of concern because of control, surveillance, and AI is all part of that. So we're going to keep our eye on that for you. And because Israel is first, AI and Israel is very important for you to know about that. Now, as we're coming to the studio, we've returned to the war with Gaza, Nathalie. We have previously, in the past few programs, said there was a ceasefire, which has sadly gone, and we're now back in the war situation, the Gaza war situation. Although it seems very much on the ground business as usual, we have had the air raid sirens going off on at least 2 occasions, as far as I know, and but that's about it really, other than the mobilization of reserves, and that's what I want to talk about now. The IDF, that's the Israeli Defense Force, or the Israeli Army, has reported that there has been a sharp decline in the rate of reservists reporting for duty. We've talked a bit about this before, the fact that it's been going on now since October 2023, the 7th. So, and we're now 2025. So the war has been going on over a year, and
18 months.
Yeah, and it means that if you're a reservist and you're called up, you have to stop everything. You have to stop your work. You have to stop. You know, you're not with your family for looking after the children, etc. And it means that if you're self-employed, or you know, you have your own business, the business has to stop. So this is very difficult for the reserves, and as I say, there's a report that they are not turning up for duty. A senior officer in the Reserve Armour Brigade, due to start a third tour of duty in the Gaza Strip, told Israel's Yedioth Aharot News that he's struggling to fill his ranks. According to him, there was a noticeable decline of at least 30% of the number of personnel reporting for reserve service. I need 15 officers for activities with normal release cycles of everyone. As for now, 2 weeks before deployment, I'm barely with 5 officers. And if I don't find another 5, there will be serious issues. So it's something of concern that they are not able to fill their ranks. And it's just because a lot of them, and of course, it's not a pleasant place to go, Gaza anyway, and what's happening there, but it's also the practical effects with work, family life, etc. It's becoming very difficult. And I ought to explain that the reservists are not full-time. This is something they do after they've done their army service. They do reserve service whilst they're working in the work in a normal job situation.
And usually, even all the wars that we had were short ones.
Right.
It wasn't 18 months. So
No.
they knew they were going there was a crisis, and then they were coming back. But now it's like on and on and on. And they can't...
There's no end, there was no sign of the end of the war, and so it makes it very difficult for people to commit that amount of time. Now, one of the things we've spoken about before is the CRISPR gene editing technology. This is also a great concern, like AI. Researchers are manipulating the genetic code. Now, God made the genetic code, and in humans and in life, in animals and in the creation. And it's very dangerous for us to start manipulating the code. Now, the other danger of manipulating the genetic code is what could be made. Uncontrollable mutations, that's creatures or whatever, that are just not controllable. Incurable diseases, these are the things of nightmares. But it's exactly what Tel Aviv scientists are risking. The former director of the United States National Institute of Health has called for a self-imposed moratorium on CRISPR, an ethical moratorium, until more is known about its effects. And Dr. Greg Lickall of Yale University says, we think we're editing one letter of the Book of Life. Now, he even refers to the Book of Life, but it's actually entire pages that might be getting altered in unintended areas. The long-term danger is unintended changes to the genome of an organization that go on and get carried through to the next generation. The safety risk is unknown for the changes to the genes that get transferred to the population and could have consequences and could be harmful. So CRISPR is really a frightening technology that's being used, Nathalie.
More and more.
And yes, and it's something we need to keep our eye on, just like AI, that there's these things that are being developed, not good at all. Now, because of the war, there has been more and more soldiers who've been wounded, and the Defense Ministry has recently had a conference regarding what to do about the situation, how to handle the amount of wounded soldiers. And they've said, just as a prelude to the conference, that they are expecting to cross the 100,000 wounded soldiers threshold by 2030. The current war has crossed the 16,000 mark, at least. Some Israeli news media say it's much higher than that. In December 2024, the ministry said the number of wounded soldiers had crossed the 75,000 mark, and for the current war, it crossed the 13,500 mark. However, and these numbers have shattered previous records, by the way, reserve soldiers constitute the majority of wounded personnel, 66%, with 51% being aged 18 to 30, which is another issue for those who are doing reserve service. If they get injured, who is going to look after them? Who's going to look after the family? What are they going to do? For their work, will they be able to do their work again as a disabled soldier? So this is something which is of concern, the amount of soldiers who are being injured. Now, one of the things about the war is the purchase of weapons, and we've talked a bit about that. Israel's Defense Ministry has planned to purchase thousands of suicide drones. These, again, are the stuff of nightmares or the stuff of movies, these drones which just explode, and particularly when they go in packs. The drones are to be used for the Israeli army, and apparently have become one of the most effective weapons on the battlefields of Israel and the Ukraine. Very of great concern that these unmanned flying machines are going around blowing up, I think. First-person view drones, that's FPVs, commonly referred to as FPV drones, were originally developed for racing due to their exceptional speed and maneuverability. However, their use in the war in Ukraine has demonstrated their potential as precision-guided weapons. Last month, the Israeli Defense Ministry has issued a tender for 5,000 FPV drones, some of which will be equipped with thermal cameras for nighttime targeting. According to the tender, the drones must have a flight range of 10 kilometers, about 6 miles. By the way, a lot of the places in Israel are close to each other. What does that mean? It means that, for example, if a drone went off course from Gaza or from Judea and Samaria, it could very well end up in a Jewish area very quickly, in a Jewish community, and which might be okay, but might not be okay if it loses contact with the base where it's been sent. Companies bidding on the tender will be required to supply additional equipment, including 100 ground stations, carrying cases for the drone, and communication range between the operator and the suicide drone. Due to international restrictions on arms sales to Israel following the war in Gaza, the Defense Ministry has prioritized domestic production for military procurement. By the way, the missing reserves also has an effect on the economy, because if they're missing from their work, they're missing from their business, it means that there's a financial effect by both the families and by both businesses. Critics, though, Nathalie, are not so enthusiastic about the acquisition of such a huge amounts of military drones. Swarms of killer drones raises great concern about their ability to make life or death decisions with artificial intelligence. We're coming back. It's all kind of linked together, Nathalie. All the different things we talk about on Israel First are linked together, and artificial intelligence is something being used with the drones. AI systems can allow these suicide drones to make their own decisions about selecting certain kinds of targets and striking them. So these are called, I think the technical word is autonomous weapons. Now, in the middle of everything, a surprising piece of news is that the Israeli banks are making record profits as the war-battered customers drown in debt. In other words, the banks are doing well, but sadly the customers not so well. Israel's two largest banks published financial statements showing both of them are raking in record numbers of shekels. Behind the soaring financials stand millions of Israelis whose sky-high interest payments, credit fees and other charges have fueled the unprecedented payday for lenders. Not only have the banks posted massive financial gains on mortgage payments and superfluous fees, and by avoiding paying interest on deposits paid by customers on current accounts. A lot of current accounts do not pay interest, and so when they store your money, when they keep your money, they don't pay any interest. So it's basically free money for the bank to use. And now I know this is something which is happening all around the world with banks, but we're feeling it here in Israel, particularly because of the war. Now, the banks are primarily make a business interest, so you can't complain about that. But when they're maximizing profits, Nathalie, for themselves during a war situation, something doesn't seem quite right, and it's something of concern. And by the way, there is very weak regulation of banks in Israel.
Yes, the thing is, before, a long time ago, banks were there for you. Okay, they were like a service. You are putting your money there and you could take it out. But now it's not really what's happening. They are using everything for making profit for themselves. And the thing is, when you look for on the humanity, on the human side, is like a lot of people, some people are committed suicide because they drown with debts and they don't know where to turn and they just want to finish their lives. So there is a big problem that nobody is speaking about, but it's a big thing.
Yeah, and it's something which is of great concern in Israel, that the banks are making so much money at this time. I'm not saying they shouldn't make any money. It's a business, so obviously it has to make a profit. It has to pay salaries to its employees, and it has to have some sort of profits. What we're talking about is it shouldn't be excessive profits. Well, as I said at the beginning of the program, this is a special program to remember Rabbi Eliezer ben Yehuda, who was the grandson of the Eliezer ben Yehuda, the pioneer of Hebrew in Israel. And Nathalie is going to talk to you a bit about that today.
Yes, and we were very saddened to find that yesterday evening. And I wanted to show you, first of all, you can find this book. This is the book that he wrote about his family, The Fulfillment of Prophecy. And so this is his grandfather. And is, as we say, the Eliezer ben Yehuda, because he was the one who revived the Hebrew language. The Hebrew language always been used by the Jewish people to study the Torah, but it wasn't used every day. And he was revived by him. He worked really so many hours and hours, and he traveled because at that time there was no computer, so he had to go to libraries and find out like the origin of certain names, who is going to use, because they didn't have bicycle during Bible time. So he had to create some names, and he wanted to do it the right way. Electricity and all this kind of thing. He took a lot of things from the Bible. And when you read Ezekiel, electricity, chashmal, come from the Bible, from Ezekiel. I think it's Ezekiel 1 or Ezekiel 2, but I think it's Ezekiel in chapter 1. So it's just amazing to see that. He was a polyglot, and he was born in Lithuania, and the granddad, okay? And we've done some amazing program with Eliezer, so the grandson. And he, at the end of his life, we knew him for more than 10 years, and we could see he was getting more and more like his grandfather, which was amazing. And when you look at the picture of here, his grandfather, at the end, you can see some program. We on the YouTube and on the Rumble, we will put the connection, so you can see the program that we've done with him. We've done many programs, and the very first program that we've done, which was at that time not called Israel First, but it was called In the Last Days, was with him. So again, it was like very special that we started with him. Beginning is always little seed and is very important. And also for you to know, in the background, we are here also in Israel because of his granddad. There is another book who was written by a journalist, and it's called The Tongue of the Prophets. His name is Robert St. John's. Amazing book also. The two books are really giving you different part of, like this one is more the family story, and that one is more the historical story. So you have different anecdotes of his life in it. Many miracles also that happened in his life. He should have died of infection when he was a little boy, but a surgeon came one night in the village and the mom went to see him. Is a bit gruesome. The story, but
that's the Eliezer ben Yehuda,
yes,
not Rabbi
yes,
Eliezer
yes,
ben
yes,
Yehuda.
yes.
So we don't get confused
Yes,
between the two. It's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yehuda who sadly passed away.
Yes.
The Eliezer ben Yehuda passed away
in 1922, I think. Yes, 1922. So, but Eliezer ben Yehuda that we had and that we've done many programs with him was really bringing alive his grandfather. And for us, so we are here because of his grandfather. When we read the book, it was really an inspiration for us. And also the passage in Hebrew, in the Torah, in the Bible, Zephaniah 3:9 is a very, very important verse. What is written that God will give again, give again. Okay, He will return a pure language, and I'm going to tell you an anecdote also about that, and that we will serve Him together in one accord, but in Hebrew is written one shoulder. So it's like we'll be one shoulder. Unity that we never seen before. I mean, we can speak like for hours about all these things. But this verse, I was reading it many years ago, and I was like, I felt inside of me that it was the Hebrew language. It's not written, it's written pure language, okay? And so I phoned one of my Jewish friends. I said, look, I'm reading this verse in Zephaniah 3:9, and I feel that is the Hebrew language. Is it the Hebrew language? And my friend said, yes, of course, my dear. And like I said, no, it's of course for you because you are Jewish and there is things that you know. But us, we don't know. We are from the nations. And there is things that we're discovering and that God is making, like He's stirring the heart of so many people. And after we heard so many people, I want to learn Hebrew. And somebody say, I had a dream of the Hebrew pen. I wanted to learn Greek again to be closer to the Bible. And I had a dream twice of somebody said, don't forget your Hebrew pen. And he didn't understand what it meant. And I was speaking about the Hebrew language, and suddenly he came at the end of the meeting and he said, I understand now. Is the Hebrew language with the first language? And obviously, if after studying, you realize the Hebrew language is the foundation of creation, and God used the word in Hebrew to create the heaven and the earth. And for the Jewish people, this is like obvious, but for us as the nation, we haven't learned all these things, and a lot of people are rediscovering these things. So it's very important. If you want to read this book, very, very amazing books. And there is another one which is also Lashon HaKodesh, which means the holy language, and why people were fighting, because there was Eliezer ben Yehuda, the Eliezer ben Yehuda, really had a vision that he needed to come back to be alive, to be able to be alive in Israel. And Israel at that time was not the Israel of now. It was even during the Ottoman Empire, okay? And he arrived during the Ottoman Empire, and then it was the British government for a while, and then it was the liberation of Israel. So you can see how there is a lot of history that happened between these two, Eliezer ben Yehuda, and for us, they have been such an inspiration, and it's like we really wanted to tell you that first of all he passed away, and that we lost a great man. He had a very sweet spirit. He loved to speak with many people. He was speaking also, Eliezer ben Yehuda, so the grandson, was also speaking a lot of different languages and really was bringing things from his grandfather in the world. And it was a privilege to have him. Another little anecdote too was he dedicated the book to Martin for his birthday, and I wrote to him and say, oh, by the way, when you come in Israel, now we live in Israel, when you come in Israel, it will be lovely to have you. And he said, I am in Israel. And I say, okay, let's do a program together. And it's how we did the first program within the last days. You can still find the program. You have to write, I guess, Martin and Nathalie Blackham, In the Last Days, Eliezer ben Yehuda, and we've done many programs with him. I think we've done about 7 or 8. And you have like all the history, and now it's even more historical because he passed away, and we have him speaking alive, and very, 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 very special.
And we'll try and put the links to the programs on the different channels on Rumble and YouTube. We'll do our best to see if we can do that. If there's a lot, we'll see if we can squeeze them in. I don't really know how that works technically.
We can put at least 2, and sometime when you put 2, the other one can come,
right?
With the search.
Yeah, we'll do that, and so you can have a look at that. Don't forget the website. You can have a look at the website, and you can contact us through the website. There's all the contact information. You can also support the work of Israel First television program, which we very much appreciate. And thank you so much to all the people who are currently supporting the program. We really thank you for that, because it makes it possible for us to be with you today. And if you'd like to support us, there's a donate page, so please go to that. If you want to catch up with the news from Israel, and there's a lot going on, not just the Gaza war, as I've spoken, and a lot of other things are happening. You can go to our news site, which is at the media page, and you can have a look at that. And don't forget, we're the program that looks at the land, the people, and the language.